Hello and welcome everyone. I hope you have a great Friday. Welcome to today's Data World Friday session. Maybe some small information before we start here. What is the Data World Friday? The Data World Friday is a weekly session we do here at Scalefree, where you, the audience, can submit questions. And we pick one question every week, essentially from the backlog, you can call it, and answer that question here in this short session. The questions you can submit online into a formula we have on our website. I will have a link later for you as well. But you could also put it in the chat, and then I will just put it into our backlog. Yes, and then next week we will pick another question and answer this one. For next week, one additional information. Sadly, next week we won't do the Data World Friday. So next week is a special occasion where we won't do it, but it will go on the week after again. This is just for your information. Normally, we really try to do it every week and don't miss one Data World Friday. But next week there was no other option. Regarding today, normally, like most of you probably know, Michael does the Data World Friday. Today I will substitute for him. My name is Lorenz Kindling. I'm a senior consultant here at Scalefree. And the question I want to talk about today is using soft deletes for GDPR or security in Data Vault. So essentially, if you can use soft deletes for GDPR or security. And yeah, before we go into detail, maybe let's start with the two cases essentially. On the left hand, we have GDPR. GDPR is, like most of you probably know, the General Data Protection Regulation of the EU. And there, every person in the EU has the right to be forgotten, which essentially means organizations who store your personal data have to delete your data if the person you are storing the data from requests it. So you as a company or as a person are yeah, adhered to this regulation, and you need to follow it if the person comes from the EU. So this is about GDPR. So we have a reason there. If a customer you've stored data about comes to you and asks you to delete your data, you need to do it. There is no other option. The question is, can we use soft deletes for that? But I will come to that later. The other case where you could think about using soft deletes is in data security. So this is also the reason why you probably want to use soft deletes in GDPR cases. Is when you want to, let's say, delete or not show the data to everyone, but only for specific departments. A typical case for that is you want to maybe hide the information for most of the company, but only give it to tax or legal for the tax or the legal department. And for that we have data security, and yeah, we then preserve access for only some departments or some people essentially in the company. And the same can go for GDPR. Probably you want to do soft deletes for GDPR because you still want to preserve some of the data, but I will come to why we essentially don't do that. So, but these are the two cases where the question was dealing with where you want to do soft deletes. So let's start with GDPR. In general, in GDPR, when you are still allowed to process the data, so for example, you still have a legal issue with a customer or a tax issue with a customer, and you want to soft delete the data for the rest of the company, but still have the information for legal or tax, then this is not a GDPR case. Then there is no need to delete the data. In GDPR, it's pretty clear. As soon as you are still allowed to process or required to process the data. You don't need to delete it. But if you are not allowed to do it, and GDPR, a person who is under the GDPR regulation asks you to delete the data, you need to do it. And there, the GDPR regulation is also really specific. GDPR requires you to delete the data either physical or logically, which in this case means like override it completely in the database. So really, you need to physically delete it or change it in the database. You are not allowed um, to make a soft delete, to make a kind of delete flag or something. It's just not working with the GDPR regulation, because they are very strict there, and it's clearly defined that you need to delete this data. Yeah, so instead what we do in Data Vault is we keep track of data that we are right now allowed to use, and which is personal data. This is why we also do, which what probably most of you know, the satellite splits in personal and non-personal satellites. So we write the describing attributes into one satellite which only holds personal attributes, and one satellite which does not hold any personal attributes. And then we just need to delete the data in the personal satellite in the end, essentially. And yeah, you need to keep track of this data and the usage, especially also in the business world. And when there comes a deletion request, you need to destruct or delete this data using physical deletes. It's for GDPR, it's not feasible to use soft deletes. For security now, you think maybe the requirements are not that hard, but essentially in Data Vault we do not use soft deletes for security as well, which maybe for some of you is a little bit new, but what we use is row and column level security, and we do that with RCL definitions, which is essentially a user um, definition access control list for users, and these access control lists then define, for example, which users are allowed to access which company, could be an example, or stuff like that. So we create RCL definitions which map users to row or column levels, and these are then loaded into the into the raw vault. And then we use queries essentially to filter the data. So for example, an inner join or something like that, so that we filter the data and only the people who are allowed to have access get access. A lot of time, what we see in projects is that these access level definitions get defined from a source system. So it could be what is often the case when you are in a Microsoft Cosmos, that they use the Azure Active Directory data to implement these ACL definitions essentially. But also there in Data Vault, we do not rely on soft deletes for security. So essentially the conclusion is we do not use soft deletes in Data Vault for GDPR and security. There are cases that we use soft deletes. For example, you could think of a record tracking satellite, something like that, but they are not used for GDPR or security. These are highly important things in a data warehouse, which also have like a lot of legal consequences if not done right. And yeah, soft deletes are just not feasible for these kinds of yeah, tables and requirements essentially. So yeah, soft deletes not for GDPR and security and Data Vault. We just don't do that. For GDPR, we recommend you to use physical deletes. I think it's the easiest option to implement, and yeah, also let's say the most secure one, so that you don't get any issues with GDPR. And for security, rely on RCL definitions. If you want to hear some more details about one of these two topics, maybe physical deletes for GDPR, what is the typical concepts or RCL definitions, um, feel free to post a question in the chat for next week, for in 2 weeks, because next week, like I said in the beginning, sadly we will not do a Data World Friday, but the week after. So you can put it in the chat or submit it through our formula on the website. I will show you the link later. One more thing before we go to that. In October, in the beginning of October, at the 10th and 11th of October, we hold our yearly conference in Hanover, which is always a really cool event, which this year is focused on cost-efficient data solutions. Yeah, and I can really recommend it. It's a smaller conference, but with really cool speakers. You can check them out on our website if you scan the QR code or just go to the link. And what I think is especially cool is to see all you people. A lot of times when we do webinars or working with customers, we get to know you only online, but to really see you in person and yeah, build a network is always really cool. So I hope to see you guys there. Have a look on our website. We have some really cool speakers, really cool evening programs, and I think it's going to be 2 really cool days. Other than that, here you can see the link for the Data World Friday where you can submit it. I think you should easily find it also if you just put Scalefree Data World Friday in Google or something. There you can submit questions, and then yeah, Michael will choose one for in 2 weeks that he will answer. We also do a lot of webinar about different topics. Probably there was also already one about GDPR or security. You can find all them on our website, and also the recordings of already of old webinars essentially. And you can also find the Data World Friday recordings on YouTube. So a lot of resources online. If you still have any questions regarding soft deletes in GDPR or security, feel free to shoot me a message. And I hope I could answer the question and give a little bit of feedback if soft deletes are feasible for GDPR security. Where the clear answer is no. In Data World, we do not recommend it. And yeah, thank you very much for joining and listening, and see you in 2 weeks at the next Data World Friday. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thanks for joining today. If you'd like to discuss this further, give us a call on the number below here, and we're happy to discuss this with you. See you next time. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.